Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I will be reading to you from Carry On Jeeves, a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1925. They are about Jeeves, a valet, and his employer, Bertie Wooster, told from the point of view of Bertie. I do readings twice a week. If you subscribe to my Substack newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Last episode, Bertie's plan to help his friend Rocky fell apart. Rocky's aunt has appeared in town and will likely find out that her nephew is not the urban adventurer she had hoped he was. In addition, she thinks Bertie's flat belongs to Rocky. Does that mean poor Bertie has to move out to a hotel? This will need some creative thinking on the part of Jeeves if he is to sort it out. Continuing, Chapter 5, The Ant and the Sluggard. The full horror of the situation rolled over me like a wave. I couldn't see what on earth I was to do. I couldn't explain that this wasn't Rocky's flat without giving the poor old chap away hopelessly, because then she would ask me where did he live, and then he'd be right in the soup. I was trying to recover from the shock when she spoke again. Will you kindly tell my nephew's manservant to prepare my room? I wish to lie down. Your nephew's manservant? The man you call Jeeves. If Rock Methtiller has gone for an automobile ride, there's no need for you to wait for him. He will naturally wish to be alone with me when he returns. I found myself tottering out of the room. The thing was too much for me. I crept into Jeeves's den. Jeeves, I whispered. Sir? Mix me a B&S, Jeeves. I feel weak. Very good, sir. This is getting thicker every minute, Jeeves. Sir? She thinks you're Mr. Todd's man. She thinks the whole place is his and everything in it. I don't see what you're to do except stay on and keep it up. We can't say anything or she'll get on to the whole thing, and I don't want to let Mr. Todd down. By the way, Jeeves, she wants you to prepare her bed. He looked wounded. It is hardly my place, sir. I know, but do it as a personal favor to me. If you come to that, it's hardly my place to be flung out of the flat like this and have to go to an hotel, what? Is it your intention to go to a hotel, sir? What will you do for clothes? Oh, good Lord, I hadn't thought of that. Can you put a few things in a bag where she isn't looking and sneak them down to me at the St. Aurea? I will endeavor to do so, sir. Well, I don't think there's anything more, is there? Tell Mr. Todd where I am when he gets here. Very good, sir. I looked round the place. The moment of parting had come. I felt sad. The whole thing reminded me of one of those melodramas where they drive chappies out of the old homestead into the snow. Goodbye, Jeeves, I said. Goodbye, sir. And I staggered out. You know, I rather think I agree with those poet and philosopher Johnnies who insist that a fellow ought to be devilish pleased if he has a bit of trouble. All that stuff about being refined by suffering, you know. Suffering does give a chap a sort of broader and more sympathetic outlook. It helps you to understand other people's misfortunes if you've been through the same thing yourself. As I stood in my lonely bedroom at the hotel, trying to tie my white tie myself, it struck me for the first time that there must be whole squads of chappies in the world who have had to get along without a man to look after them. I'd always thought of Jeeves as sort of a natural phenomenon, but by Jove, of course, when you come to think of it, there must be quite a lot of fellows who have to press their own clothes themselves and haven't got anybody to bring them tea in the morning and so on. It was rather a solemn thought, don't you know? I mean to say, ever since then, I've been able to appreciate the frightful privations the poor have to stick. I got dressed somehow. Jeeves hadn't forgotten a thing in his packing. Everything was there, down to the final stud. I'm not sure this didn't make me feel worse. It kind of deepened the pathos. It was like what somebody or other wrote about the touch of a vanished hand. I had a bit of dinner somewhere and went to a show of some kind, but nothing seemed to make any difference. I simply hadn't the heart to go on to supper myself. I just went straight up to bed. I don't know when I've felt so rotten. Somehow I found myself moving about the room softly, as if there'd been a death in the family. If I had had anybody to talk to, I should have talked in a whisper. In fact, when the telephone bell rang, I answered in such a sad, hushed voice that the fellow at the other end of the wire said, "Hello," 5 times, thinking he hadn't got me. It was Rocky. The poor old scout was deeply agitated. "Bertie, is that you, Bertie? Oh, gosh, I'm having a time." "Where are you speaking from?" "The Midnight Revels. She's been here an hour, and I think we're a fixture for the night. I've told Aunt Isabel I've gone out to call up a friend to come down and join us. She's glued to a chair with 'This is the Life' written all over her, taking it in through the pores. She loves it, and I'm nearly crazy." "Oh, tell me all, old top," I said. "A little more of this," he said, "and I shall sneak quietly off to the river and end it all. Do you mean to say you go through this sort of thing every night, Bertie, and enjoy it? It's simply infernal. I was just snatching a wink of sleep behind the bill of fare just now when about 1,000,000 yelling girls swooped down with toy balloons. There are 2 orchestras here, each trying to see if it can't play louder than the other. I'm a mental and physical wreck. When your telegram arrived, I was just lying down for a quiet pipe at home in the country, with a sense of absolute peace stealing over me. I had to get dressed and sprint 2 miles to catch the train. It nearly gave me heart failure, and on top of that, I almost got brain fever inventing lies to tell Aunt Isabel. And then I had to cram myself into these confounded evening clothes of yours." I gave a sharp wail of agony. It hadn't struck me till then that Rocky was depending on my wardrobe to see him through. "Rocky, you'll ruin them." "I hope so," said Rocky in the most unpleasant way. His trouble seemed to have worse effect on his character. "I should like to get back at them somehow. They've given me a bad enough time. They're about 3 sizes too small, and something's apt to give at any moment. I wish to goodness it would, and give me a chance to breathe. I haven't breathed since 7:30. Thank heaven Jeeves managed to get out and buy me a collar that fitted it, or I should be a strangled corpse by now. It was touch and go till the stud broke. Bertie, this is pure Hades. Aunt Isabel keeps on urging me to dance. How on earth can I dance when I don't know a soul to dance with? And how the deuce could I, even if I knew every girl in the place? It's taking big chances to even move in these trousers. I had to tell her I'd hurt my ankle. She keeps asking when my supposed friends like celebrities Cohen and Stone are going to turn up, and it's simply a question of time before she discovers that Stone is actually sitting 2 tables away. Something's got to be done, Bertie. You've got to think up some way of getting me out of this mess. It was you that got me into it. Me? What do you mean? Oh, well, Jeeves then. It's all the same. It was you who suggested leaving it to Jeeves. It was those letters I wrote from his notes that did the mischief. I made them too good. My aunt's just been telling me about it. She says she had resigned herself to ending her life where she was, and then my letters began to arrive describing the joys of New York, and they stimulated her to such an extent that she pulled herself together and made the trip. She seems to think she's had some miraculous kind of faith cure. I tell you, I can't stand it, Bertie. It has to end. Can't Jeeves think of anything? No, he just hangs round saying, "Most disturbing, sir." Fat lot of help, that is. Well, old lad, I said, after all, it's far worse for me than it is for you. You've got a comfortable home in Jeeves, and you're saving a lot of money. Saving money? What do you mean, saving money? Why, the allowance your aunt was giving you. I suppose she's paying all the expenses now, isn't she? Well, certainly she is, but she stopped the allowance. She wrote the lawyers tonight. She says that now she's in New York, there's no necessity for it to go on. She doesn't have to pay me to write about it. We'll always be together, and it's simpler for her to look after that end of it. I tell you, Bertie, I've examined the darn cloud with a microscope, and if it's got a silver lining, it's some little dissembler. But Rocky, old top, it's too bally awful. You've got no notion of what I'm going through in this beastly hotel without Jeeves. I must get back to the flat. Don't come near the flat. But it's my own flat. I can't help that, he said. Aunt Isabel doesn't like you. She asked me what you did for a living. When I told her you didn't do anything, she said she thought as much, and that you were a typical specimen of a useless, decaying aristocracy. So if you think you've made a hit, forget it. No, I must be going back, or she'll be coming out here after me. Goodbye. Next morning, Jeeves came round. It was all so homelike when he floated noiselessly into the room that I nearly broke down. Good morning, sir, he said. I have brought a few more of your personal belongings. He began to unstrap the suitcase he was carrying. Did you have any trouble sneaking them away? It was not easy, sir. I had to watch my chance. Miss Rockmetaler is a remarkably alert lady. You know, Jeeves, say what you like. This is a bit thick, isn't it? The situation is certainly one that has never before come under my notice, sir. I have brought the heather mixture suit, as the climactic conditions are congenial. Tomorrow, if not prevented, I will endeavor to add the brown lounge with the faint green twill. I can't go on, this sort of thing, Jeeves. We must hope for the best, sir. But can't you think of anything to do? I have been giving the matter considerable thought, sir, but so far without success. I am placing 3 silk shirts, the dove-colored, the light blue, and the mauve, in the first long drawer, sir. You don't mean to say you can't think of anything, Jeeves? For the moment, sir, no. You will find a dozen handkerchiefs and hand socks in the upper drawer on the left. He strapped the suitcase and put it on a chair. A curious lady, Miss Rockmetaler, sir. You understate it, Jeeves. He gazed meditatively out the window. In many ways, sir, Miss Rockmetaler reminds me of an aunt of mine who resides in the southeast portion of London. Their temperaments are much alike. My aunt has the same taste for the pleasures of the great city. It is a passion with her to ride in hansom cabs, sir. Whenever the family takes their eyes off her, she escapes from the house and spends the day riding about in cabs. On several occasions, she has broken into the children's savings bank to secure the means to enable her to gratify this desire. Well, I love to have these little chats with you about your female relatives, Jeeves, I said coldly, for I felt that the man had let me down, and I was fed up with him. But I don't see what all this has got to do with my trouble. I beg your pardon, sir. I'm leaving a small assortment of our neckties on the mantelpiece, sir, for you to select according to your preference. I should recommend the blue with the red domino pattern, sir. Then he streamed imperceptibly towards the door and flowed silently out. I've often heard that fellows after some great shock or loss have a habit, after they've been on the floor for a while wondering what hit them, picking themselves up and piecing themselves together, and sort of taking a whirl and beginning a new life. Time, the great healer, and nature adjusting itself, so on and so forth. Well, there's a lot in it. I know because in my own case, after a day or two of what you might call prostration, I began to recover. The frightful loss of Jeeves made any thought of pleasure more or less a mockery, but at least I found I was able to have a dash at enjoying life again. What I mean is, I braced up to the extent of going round the cabarets once more, so as to try to forget, if only for a moment. New York's a small place when it comes to the part of it that wakes up just as the rest is going to bed. It wasn't long before my tracks began to cross old Rocky's. I saw him once at Peel's and again at Frolics on the Roof. There wasn't anybody with him either time except my aunt, and though he was trying to look as if he'd struck the ideal life, it wasn't difficult for me, knowing the circumstances, to see that beneath the mask the poor chap was suffering. My heart bled for the fellow. At least what there was of it that wasn't bleeding for myself bled for him. He had the air of one who was about to crack under the strain. It seemed to me that the aunt was looking slightly upset also. I took it that she was beginning to wonder when the celebrities were going to surge round and what had suddenly become of all those wild, careless spirits Rocky used to mix with in his letters. I didn't blame her. I'd only read a couple of his letters, but they certainly gave the impression that poor old Rocky was by the way of being the hub of New York nightlife, and that if by any chance he failed to show up at a cabaret, the management said, "Oh, what's the use?" and they just put up the shutters. The next 2 nights I didn't come across them, but the night after that I was sitting by myself at the Maison Pierre when somebody tapped me on the shoulder blade, and I found Rocky standing beside me with the sort of mixed expression of wistfulness and apoplexy on his face. How the man had contrived to wear my evening clothes so many times without disaster was a mystery to me. He confided later that early in the proceedings he had slit the waistcoat up the back and that had helped a lot. For a moment I had the idea that he had managed to get away from his aunt for the evening, but looking past him I saw there she was in again. She was at a table over by the wall, looking at me as if I were something the management ought to be complained to about. "Bertie, old scout," said Rocky in a quiet, sort of crushed voice. "We've always been pals, haven't we? I mean, you know, I'd do you a good turn if you asked me." "My dear old lad," I said. The man had moved me. "Oh, then for heaven's sake, come over and sit at our table for the rest of the evening." "Well, you know, there are limits to the sacred claims of friendship." "My dear chap," I said, "you know I'd do anything in reason, but—" "You must come, Bertie. You've got to. Something's got to be done to divert her mind. She's brooding about something. She's been like that for the last 2 days. I think she's beginning to suspect. She can't understand why we never seem to meet anyone famous I know on these joints. A few nights ago, I happened to run into 2 newspaper men I used to know fairly well. That kept me going for a while. I introduced them to Aunt Isabel as David Belasco and Jim Corbett, and it went well. But the effect has worn off now, and she's beginning to wonder again. Something's got to be done, or she'll find out everything, and if she does, I take a nickel for my chances of getting a cent from her later on. So for the love of Mike, come across to our table and help things along." I went along. One has to rally round a pal in distress. Aunt Isabel was sitting bolt upright as usual. It certainly did seem as she'd lost a bit of the zest with which she had started out to explore Broadway. She looked as if she had been thinking a good deal about rather unpleasant things. "You've met Bertie Wooster, Aunt Isabel," said Rocky. "I have," she said. "Take a seat, Bertie," said Rocky. And so the merry party began. It was one of those jolly, happy bread-crumbling parties where you cough twice before you speak and then decide not to say it after all. After we had had an hour of this wild dissipation, Aunt Isabel said she wanted to go home. In the light of what Rocky had been telling me, this struck me as sinister. I had gathered that at the beginning of her visit she had had to be dragged home with ropes. It must have hit Rocky the same way, for he gave me a pleading look. "Oh, you'll come along, won't you, Bertie, and have a drink at the flat?" I had a feeling that this wasn't in the contract, but there wasn't anything to be done. It seemed brutal to leave the poor chap alone with the woman, so I went along. Right from the start, from the moment we stepped into the taxi, the feeling began to grow that something was about to break loose. A massive silence prevailed in the corner where the aunt sat, and though Rocky, balancing himself on a little seat in the front, did his best to supply dialogue, we weren't a chatty party. I had a glimpse of Jeeves as we went into the flat, sitting in his lair, and I wished I could have called to him to rally round. Something told me I was about to need him. The stuff was on the table in the sitting room. Rocky took up the decanter. "Say when, Bertie." "Stop," barked the aunt, and he dropped it. I caught Rocky's eye as he stooped to pick up the runes. It was the eye of one who sees it coming. "Leave it there, rock meddler," said Aunt Isabel, and Rocky left it there. "The time has come to speak," she said. "I cannot stand idly by and see a young man going to perdition." Poor old Rocky gave a sort of gurgle, a kind of sound rather like the whiskey I had made running out of the decanter onto my carpet. "Eh?" he said, blinking. The aunt proceeded. The fault, she said, was mine. I had not then seen the light. But now my eyes are open. I see the hideous mistake I have made. I shudder at the thought of the wrong I did you, Rockmettler, by urging you into contact with this wicked city. I saw Rocky grope feebly for the table. His fingers touched it, and a look of relief came into the poor chappie's face. I understood his feelings. But when I wrote you that letter, Rockmettler, instructing you to go to the city and live its life, I had not had the privilege of hearing Mr. Mundy speak on the subject of New York. Jimmy Mundy, I cried. You know how it is sometimes when everything seems all mixed up and you suddenly get a clue? When she mentioned Jimmy Mundy, I began to understand more or less what had happened. I'd seen it happen before. I remember back in England, the man I had before Jeeves sneaked off to a meeting on his evening out and came back and denounced me in front of a crowd of chappies I was giving a supper to as a useless blot on the fabric of society. The aunt gave me a withering up and down. Yes, Jimmy Mundy, she said. I'm surprised at a man of your stamp having heard of him. There is no music, there is no drunken dancing man, no shameless flaunting women at his meetings, so for you they would have no attraction. But for others, less dead in sin, he has his message. He has come to save New York from itself, to force it, in his picturesque phrase, to hit the trail. It was 3 days ago, Rockmettler, that I first heard him. It was an accident that took me to his meeting. How often in this life a mere accident may shape our whole future. You had been called away by that telephone message from Mr. Belasco, so you could not take me to the Hippodrome as we'd arranged. I asked your manservant Jeeves to take me there. The man has very little intelligence. He seems to have misunderstood me. I am thankful that he did. He took me to what I subsequently learned was Madison Square Garden, where Mr. Mundy is holding his meetings. He escorted me to a seat and then left me. And it was not till the meeting had begun that I discovered the mistake which had been made. My seat was in the middle of a row, and so I could not leave without inconveniencing a great many people, so I remained. She gulped. Rockmettler, I have never been so thankful for anything else. Mr. Mundy was wonderful. He was like some prophet of old, scouring the sins of the people. He leaped about in a frenzy of inspiration till I feared he would do himself an injury. Sometimes he expressed himself in a somewhat odd manner, but every word carried conviction. He showed me New York in its true colors. He showed me the vanity and wickedness of sitting in gilded haunts of vice, eating lobster when decent people should be in bed. He said that the tango and the foxtrot were devices of the devil to drag people down into the bottomless pit. He said that there was more sin in 10 minutes with a Negro banjo orchestra than in all the ancient revels of Nineveh and Babylon. And when he stood on one leg and pointed right at where I was sitting and shouted, "This means you," I could have sunk through the floor. I came away a changed woman. Surely you must have noticed the change in me, Rockmettler? You must have seen that I was no longer the careless, thoughtless person who had urged you to dance in these places of wickedness. Rocky was holding onto the table as if it was his only friend. Yes, he stammered. I thought something was wrong. Wrong, she said. Something was right. Everything was right. Rockmettler, it is not too late for you to be saved. You have only sipped the evil cup. You have not drained it. It will be hard at first, but you will find that you can do it if you can fight with a stout heart against the glamour and fascination of this dreadful city. Won't you, for my sake, try, Rockmettler? Won't you go live in the country tomorrow and begin the struggle? Little by little, if you use your will. I can't help thinking it must have been that word will that roused dear old Rocky like a trumpet call. It must have brought home to him the realization that a miracle had come off and saved him from being cut out of Aunt Isabel's will. At any rate, as she said it, he perked up, let go of the table, and faced her with gleaming eyes. Do you want me to go to the country, Aunt Isabel? Yes. And to live in the country? Yes, Rockmettler. Stay in the country all the time? Never come to New York? Yes, Rockmettler. I meant just that. It's the only way. Only there can you be safe from temptation. Will you do it, Rockmettler? Will you, for my sake? Rocky grabbed the table again. He seemed to draw a lot of encouragement from that table. I will, he said. Jeeves, I said. Then it was the next day. I was back in my old flat, lying in the old armchair with my feet up on the good old table, and I'd just come from seeing dear old Rocky off to his country cottage, and an hour before I'd seen his aunt off to whatever hamlet it was she was the curse of, so we were alone at last. Jeeves, there's no place like home, what? Very good, sir. And the jolly old roof tree and all that sort of thing, what? Precisely. I lit another cigarette. Jeeves, sir. Do you know, at one point in the business, I really thought you were baffled. Indeed, sir. When did you get the idea of taking Miss Rockmettler to that meeting? It was pure genius. Thank you, sir. It came to me a little suddenly, one morning when I was thinking of my aunt, sir. Your aunt? The hansom cab one? Yes, sir. I recollected that whenever we observed one of her attacks coming on, we used to send for the clergyman of the parish. We always found that if he talked to her a while of higher things, it diverted her mind from hansom cabs. It occurred to me that the same treatment might prove efficacious to the case of Miss Rockmettler. I was stunned by the man's resource. It's brain, I said, pure brain. What do you get like that, Jeeves? I believe you must eat a lot of fish or something. Do you eat a lot of fish, Jeeves? No, sir. Oh, well, then, it's just a gift, I take it. If you aren't born that way, there's no use worrying. Precisely, sir. If I might make the suggestion, sir, I should not continue to wear your present tie. The green shade gives you a slightly bilious air. I should strongly advocate the blue with a red domino pattern instead, sir. All right, Jeeves, I said humbly. You know. End of chapter. Thank God for Jeeves. A satisfactory end all round, with Rocky forced to go back to his beloved country. Stay tuned for the next episode, where another one of Bertie's flaky friends falls in love with a lovely young girl. Unfortunately, he can't remember her last name or the hotel she's staying at. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensu.substack.com. And remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.